I think we should take a moment to appreciate that this is not drugs, because it could be drugs. My 30 favorite books in 30 years. This list will include series as one book, because, I mean, between Harry Potter and Jack Reacher, that alone would be like 17. I did not even put down the Jack Reacher books. Holy moly! More books, that's what this backdrop needed. Don't you judge me. I have read a lot of books over the years. We can't do this in any specific order because that would mean there has to be a number one, and that's just not gonna happen. So, we're just gonna start with whatever's closest. Good pick. Okay, Lord of the Rings. I actually watched the movies. I stopped counting in high school when I reached 100 times before I read the books, and then I read the books, loved them. Obviously, it's Tolkien. Hello. Jack Reacher is a great series for when you want a book that is sort of predictable, but it's going to have a plot twist where you know the good guy is going to win, and you know the guy gets the girl, but there's always great action. So it's kind of a comfort read for me at this point. Green Angel is a book that I came across in, I think, late elementary school. I read it in a day. If you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend it, especially for the younger readers. It doesn't shy away from serious issues like grief and loss and all of a sudden just being on your own and having to deal. Apparently there is a follow-up book, but I didn't even know about that until a few months ago, so I need to find it and read it. Hobbit Lessons. This is a great book for if you're going through a big transition in life. Definitely recommend that. We have the entire Lunar Chronicles series except... No, I got them all. So, what's great about this series is the characters are fantastic, the dialogue is so well written, the action is well paced. You aren't starving for those little moments where the characters just get to interact with each other, but you also are not lagging in the action and the main plot does not slow down. She also wrote 2 additional books, Fairest, which is about the villain's backstory, and Stars Above, which is a collection of short stories that take place in the same universe. They don't necessarily affect the main storyline, but you do get a small little peek at what the main characters are up to after the series ends. So I really appreciated that. A Court of Thorns and Roses. I do appreciate a really good retelling, fairy tale retelling, and I appreciate this take on things a lot. It's described as A Court of Thorns and Roses is basically the longest foreword of any book that you'll ever read, and it's kind of true. How things shift, that is how she changes and how the main relationship changes and how the next main relationship is formed because of all of that. I really appreciate it. So A Court of Mist and Fury, really good. More over here. Dreadfully Ever After and Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. I actually was not a huge fan of Pride and Prejudice, and I was like, you know what, let's throw in some zombies, see if I like it that way, and you know what, I do. I mean, I have to add my own book. This is going to be one of my favorite books of all time forever, because I wrote it. It proves I can do it. So, Blood Fiercely Defended obviously has to make the list. Safe Haven. I think it's a great story about starting over and realizing that you can be in a really shitty situation and make it out on your own. And basically, no situation is so bad that you can't strike out and make it. I think that was really what I got out of it. Okay. No, okay, it's falling. We have the Dan Brown, Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code, Inferno. There's also The Lost Symbol, and Origin was the latest one. The library that I was able to get Origin from, they had a thing where the latest releases, you couldn't have them for the, I think it's 3 weeks that you can normally have a book out. It was like you could only have it for like 4 or 5 days, and I finished it in 3. So, Deception Point is his first book. I also really recommend this one. And he talks about how when he was writing it, he was in an office space where there wasn't really heat set up, so he was always cold, and he's like, I think that's why I made it that people were cold all the time and why it's set somewhere so cold. I thought that was fun. Oh man. Okay, Vampire Academy. I literally, I think it was book 4 or 5, I put it down and then picked up the next one and started reading. I was reading these as we moved from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. So these books carried me through that big transition. So the first couple days when you're settling in and you don't have a job yet and all that, I was able to read a lot. I actually don't have the Mortal Instruments books. I got all of those and read all of those in the library, or through the library I should say. I wasn't just in the library reading the whole time. And I read them I lived in a little A-frame at the time. I didn't even have internet by choice, and I loved it. And I discovered the Mortal Instruments books and devoured them. Absolutely devoured them. So I had never been so fully captured by a book since like Harry Potter. It was crazy. Speaking of fairy tale retellings from before, Just Ella is, when I do have to pick a favorite, this is usually the one that I say is my favorite. I really highly recommend it, even as an adult, just because she comes across the dilemma of, very early on in the book, like this is what it's all about, that because it starts a few months after the ball. She's already moved into the castle and been living there for a bit, and basically she realizes she's not actually in love with Prince Charming, and this princess life and having everything she could ever want is not actually what she wants, and she doesn't know what to do. So she's kind of stuck in this situation and again has to get herself out. And the biggest lesson basically is someone's idea of beautiful, someone else's idea of happy does not have to be your idea of happy or beautiful. How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci is the latest book that I have finished, and I'm definitely going to go back through it and do all of the exercises as I go through it. This is pretty life-changing. We are told so much that you need to niche down into one core thing and let that define you and build everything in your life around it. And in the Renaissance, especially Da Vinci, very much dabbled in everything. I mean, he was, an anatomist, is that the correct word? He knew anatomy insanely well. He knew optics really well. He was an engineer. He came up with war machines. He was an artist and a playwright, a painter, and he excelled at all of those things. So it's really inviting you to reject the notion that you only have to do one thing, and inviting you to more deeply explore the idea of doing multiple things. And not just that, there's even more to it than that, and it's been revolutionary for me. When I found out Marissa Meyer had another series out, the first one is Renegades, I knew immediately I had to get it. So this was my Christmas present to myself in 2019, and I got all 3 of them and read all 3 of them pretty quickly. I was in the mood for a sci-fi, and I thought this was such a great book because the big difference between the two characters is very much political. They agree that people need to be treated well and all of that, but how they want to get to that point differs politically. So I really appreciated that. My eldest brother got me this beautiful box set of Harry Potter. They're paperback, all the spines line up to make the castle. I absolutely love these. These are gorgeous editions. Obviously I'm a big fan. And then even the box, I mean, you get to see, there's Honeydukes and the train. So this must be Sonko's, so that's Hogsmeade on the back in the castle on the spines. My second eldest brother, well, my only other brother, is in the middle. Him and his fiancée, soon to be wife, got me not one, but all 4 of the illustrated Harry Potter books. So these obviously are going to be featured on the Instagram because they're gorgeous. You don't get a book that's beautiful and keep it to yourself. Okay, what next? Ooh, here we go. Flashback. Into the Land of the Unicorns. There's, okay, so the first book is Into the Land of the Unicorns, and then the next one is Song of the Wanderer. I got these at book fairs when I was in 4th, 5th grade, I think, maybe. There's also A Glory of Unicorns, which is actually why in Blood Fiercely Defended I call it A Glory of Unicorns, because I think that's just a beautiful term. And there are more books to the series, but they're really hard to find in stock anywhere. And when I read these, internet wasn't really that big of a thing yet. Like, I don't even think Amazon existed, because if that was 4th, 5th grade, that would have been 2002, 2003. So basically, if it wasn't in the bookstore and it wasn't at the book fair, you couldn't get it. And I finally tried to re-find them, and it's been a pain in the butt. I have found some of them, but like the complete set is just a ridiculous price for some reason. I don't know why, but I do want to finish it because nostalgia, and they're just, again, very capturing books, so I really enjoyed these. Oh, The Hobbit, of course. Lovely, lovely book. I read The Lord of the Rings because I was like, I've watched the films so many times. I have to read the trilogy. And then shortly after I read The Hobbit, and I was like, oh, The Hobbit. And I just, because I mean, it's just it's just a bunch of bros hanging out and having a good time and having an adventure, and I loved that. And so it's very well-worn coffee, because I've read this 4 or 5 times now. It's gone with me a lot of places. So it was the first time I ever legitimately fangirled was when this arrived in the mail, because it may not look it now, but it was a gorgeous edition because it's got gilded edges, and now it's looking pretty beat up, but A Natural History of Dragons. I don't have the last book, because the last book is Within the Sanctuary of Wings, which you're like, oh my gosh, how can she wrap up this amazing series? And oh, she does, like a freaking bomb. Because the whole time you're like, oh, she discovers this big thing, and that's why Lady Trent is so famous, is she's done all this stuff. And you think with all the other adventures that, oh, that's it, that's all she, no, there's more. This is a series, I have not reread it yet, but I was only on chapter maybe 3, 4, and I was like, oh, I will be rereading this series, because she leaves such beautiful little hints in the beginning and sprinkles them throughout of things that are going to pay off in later books, or even later on just within that book, because it's the lady reflecting back on her life. So she knows what's going to happen next. She knows what's going to happen in a few years. It's garbage day. So that was really fun. And last but certainly not least, I mean, this series literally saved my life. We won't get into that. But Inkheart, I actually had the first book I got as a paperback, and it was so worn out because I took it with me everywhere, and I read it a few times that the cover fell off. So I loved the first book, and I think it was this one? Yeah. For opening day of deer season, my dad got me this book because we would always read in the deer blinds, and that was like our thing. Was I would go with him on opening day and hunt with him. And so I got a little note. It's for me. That is forever going to be in this book, so I have that beautiful memory. And then I put off reading this, the last one, for years because I was all excited to get it. And then a coworker of mine, when I was working at the paper mill, she said, yeah, I love that series, but the third book just ruined it for me. And oh God, no. And actually, I would debate that this is my favorite book of the whole series. So, and actually, this series is why I have a blue jay feather on my foot, because in Ink Spell we get introduced to the blue jay character, and in Ink Death we get to see him a little more, and it's a great predestination versus free will conundrum, so I really enjoy it. It's a great series. Okay. Oh, I missed one. The Two Princesses of Bamar. This was a really good one as well because it's not the strong, valiant sister that ends up having to be the hero. It's actually the other fair-haired, kind of shy and bashful, does not seek out adventure at all sister that finds out she has a strength that she didn't realize she had. So, sneak this one in at the end there. Okay. Now, I think I got them all. Yeah. A Treasury of 10 Tiny Tales. This was a staple for bedtime stories when I was really, really little. Merry Christmas. 1991. It was actually for my brother, but I have it. Okay. Young Guinevere. I loved the visuals in this book. Let's see if it's dated. It's not. It's me attempting to have a nice signature. I did not succeed. But I mean, it's so rich and gorgeous. The illustrations in this are so much fun. And of course it's about a strong, independent woman, so I was a fan. Rapunzel. This version specifically, again, the visuals in this are gorgeous. I mean, the cover alone. And this is actually the version that is pretty harsh, because in one of the originals anyway, well, here we go. The dude comes up, she's gone, and gets shoved off the tower. So, yep. And then I sought out this book for so many years because it was at the school library when I was in maybe 2nd or 3rd grade, I think I first read this. And it was my absolute favorite version until I found Justella of Cinderella. And it's the Persian Cinderella. And it's so different because there's not a fairy godmother, there's a perfume bottle that grants her wishes. And it's really cool. I really enjoyed this version. It's very fun. So, finally found that. Was very happy to finally have that. The Rapunzel one was another one that I tracked down like 15 years after the fact. And then this is The Joy of Less. And this is one where I had read it in a library and I kept checking it out. And I was like, well, I should probably just buy this. And thrift books, if you don't know it, you're welcome. Because you can find so many books on there, and they have good, new, used, acceptable, which basically just means it's really beat up. I got one that was considered acceptable, and like the cover was bent, like all the pages were there, you could still read it, obviously, but it just not exactly like grammable, if you will. But great website if you also want to have not a drug problem, but a book problem with me. So these are the 30 that I chose for this list. So these are all books that I have read, found worthy of owning. Obviously I don't have the Mortal Instruments yet, but I do want to get them because that is a series I do want to reread. I'm very excited about the next books coming up. The universe keeps expanding and I'm excited about it. And let me know if there's a book on here that you didn't know about and you're excited to try out, or if there's a book on here that you're excited to see that someone else has also read. Let me know if there's something that you're like, you know what, I've heard about it, I haven't read it yet, but now I'm going to give it a try. And as always, likes, comments, and subscribes are always wildly appreciated, and I will see you on the next step of our journey.